I'd been counting losses instead of sleep for 3 weeks, and each morning the math got meaner. A calf gutted and left like a warning. A heifer with her throat opened but hardly a mouthful taken. Killing that wasn't hunger so much as handwriting. Today the handwriting led me to the riverbank, where mud held a set of paw prints, big as saucers, stamped clean as a clerk's seal. No animal writes that neat knot after wind, cattle, and rain. The claws hadn't scuffed, the pad sat proud, and every step lined up like a ladder somebody wanted me to climb. I set my palm over one print. My hand disappeared inside it. Cold ran up my arm like water behind me. Clara huffed. She's a plain bay with a better mind than most men I've hired, and she knows when I'm set on a bad idea. She tossed her head, reins whispering. "I see 'em," I told her. "I ain't blind, just stubborn." The tracks ran south, tight along the creek, and into a cut most folks step around by instinct. Dead Horse Canyon doesn't have stories so much as silences. My father would point from the ridge and say smart boys rode the long way home. I listened to the cottonwoods tick over the water and felt that old warning settle in my bones. Instead, I checked the Winchester and swung up. Clara shifted under me, testing how fast I meant to run. "Easy," I said, palm on her neck. "Wheel? Go careful." She snorted at the canyon like it was a snake she didn't trust. The mouth of Dead Horse is narrow, sandstone pinching the light into a ribbon. We moved single file with our own echoes pacing us. A raven complained, the sound bouncing until you couldn't tell if it came from ahead or behind. The air cooled, stone and damp, shouldering out the smell of sage. Those careful prints never stumbled or widened. A cat heavy enough to mark that deep should have slid on the slick spots. It hadn't. As we went, the thought wouldn't fit right. Coyotes and cougars don't hold grudges. Men do. What kind of man works through a cat, too? Lead another man's herd? You don't make money off carcasses left in the grass. You make messages. At a bend where sunlight thinned to a knife's edge, Clara locked up. I didn't spur. I listened. Quiet stretched the way it does in a church or right before lightning. The hair lifted on my arms. I felt watched, and not the way a cat watches. Cats weigh you as meat or trouble. This felt like a tally being kept. "All right," I said to nobody I could see. I climbed down so boots would do the talking instead of iron shoes, loosened Clara's cinch a notch, looped the reins around my wrist, and started forward with the rifle low and my hat brim breaking the glare. I'm not brave by nature. I am, however, mean with the things I love. This place, its brittle grass and hard water, this is what I have. Something had decided to write its name across it in blood. The unease in my gut hardened the way creek water skins over at dawn. Fear is soft until it freezes. Then it's a surface you can stand on. So I went deeper, following those perfect tracks into a canyon that had swallowed better men than me, promising myself that today I'd stop counting losses and make someone else keep the books. The canyon pinched tighter by the yard until the sky thinned to a wire. Sound went odd, echoes clipped. I led Clara until the walls pressed so close a horse would only advertise me, then looped her reins to a scrub and a crack. She nuzzled my shoulder once. I rubbed her jaw. "I'll be back," I said, and stepped on alone. Boot leather on dust is a loud language here, so I talked quiet, rolling my feet, picking stone, stopping when the air shifted. The cat's tracks stayed too perfect, each pad clear, as if the canyon were a stamp. Then the floor leveled into a pocket, where 3 cuts split the rock, and I saw something that chilled me. Boot prints, fresh, not cutting away from the cat like any sane soul would, but matching it stride for stride, pad for heel. The heels were narrow with a spur-nicked edge, right foot turning in a hair. I set my own boot alongside. Whoever walked here had a longer leg or a different cadence. The spacing matched the cat's lope, neat as stitching. The grit kicked forward was still dry on top, glinting like salt. 10 minutes. Maybe less. In the left track, a filament of blonde hair lay kinked with static, too pale for horse, and too fine for cow. Beside it, the cat's print held a dust of gray limestone that didn't belong to this seam. Somebody had shaken powder to keep the record going where stone went bare. That explained the riverbank. This wasn't hunting. It was a message written by patient hands. Fear moved through me like cold water, but curiosity set a hook of its own. What kind of mind walks in lockstep with a panther? What kind of loyalty does that take? I looked at the choices. Left dropped into broken shade and fallen rock. Right climbed toward a pale seam and the clatter of pebbles. The middle stayed flat, inside the gloom, and carried both sets of tracks deeper. I tightened the sling, pulled my hat down, and tested the middle with a pebble. It skipped twice, then the sound died like someone pinched the air. Good for sneaking, bad for hearing trouble. I stepped where the cat had stepped, not for poetry, but because whoever trained it had taught it to choose the quietest ground. Every few rods the pair left sign one notch in a twig, a faint chalk dash on a wall, a scuffed square where a snare might sit. I passed a place where the cat had rubbed its cheek, leaving a smear that smelled of tallow and smoke. My heart tapped harder, not just from fear, but from the sense of walking into someone's workshop. I told myself Morrison was behind it, Morrison with his talk about progress and fencing the valley until it couldn't breathe, but the prints didn't swagger. They were careful, particular, almost tender where the cat had hesitated and the human print paused beside it. Heel pivoted in patience you don't hire with coin. Light went greenish. The air cooled like a cellar. A headwater sang in the throat of the stone, and with it a scrap of sound too regular to be natural 10 on 10, or a buckle tapped by movement. I slid to a stop, a wake-dot middle path, I decided. Rifle ready, stealth high. Whoever wrote this line wanted me to read it. I meant T.O., but on my terms, if I could, one careful word at a time. The middle path clenched until the walls let go at once. I stepped into a stone bowl no wider than a schoolhouse yard, boulders piled, a ribbon of water running through, and in the rimmed shade a black cat circling, tail low, head level, paws like needles on cloth. The 10 on 10 was only a spoon on a canteen as a young woman crouched by a bedroll. She wasn't a drifter. Everything was orderly. Blankets folded twice. Stakes driven square. A kit laid out, brush, knife, a coil of rawhide. A pouch dusted with chalk. Hat brim low, hair braided and sun-dusted. Her boots had that inward turn from the prints. She held a strip of meat, and the cat took it with the courtesy of a gentleman at a dance. I slid behind a rock with a sliver view. Shock ran hot, then cold. The cat's throat bore a pale groove where rope had burned it, pink skin peeking under black fur. The leather collar sat cut and re-sewn. This wasn't a wild panther doing wild work. This was a wild thing kept inside walls someone built. The last 3 weeks clicked. 2 clean tracks, chalk where stone won't speak. Kills that read like notices. Not a monster a hand. You don't put a noose on a panther unless you've raised it to tolerate touch, or you've broken it with patience and hurt. The woman's palm opened on the cat's shoulder. The animal leaned like she'd earned it. Snares crouched under brush loops to snag legs, not choke necks. Stakes with quick notches where a line could drop and haul. On one rock a short row of chalk marks. Sat like a ledger, counting nights, counting raids. Beside the bedroll, a folded paper flashed survey lines and angles. No name, but the geometry smelled like Morrison. The way he talks about carving this valley into lots before ink dries. She clicked her tongue twice soft. Identical, and the cat posted beside her, eyes on the opening I'd come through. She wiped the spoon, set pot and rag back, habits tight. When she stood, I saw the holster. Hand-sewn, good leather, worn hard. She moved careful, not scared. Folks who live around big animals pour themselves like water slow and sure. I should have backed away. Any sane man finds a trained cat and its handler and lets the law sort it. But the law here wears faces I don't trust, and the butchered calves won't leave my eyes. If she set that cat on my herd, I needed truth. If she didn't, I needed to know who did, and why they wanted me blaming a ghost in the rocks. She whistled once. The cat's ears flicked toward a seam I hadn't seen, a slice of dark between 2 boulders. The animal flowed that way to check. I pulled the Winchester tight to my ribs. Wind shifted and carried Clara's smell down canyon salt of saddle. And horse, the cat stopped. The woman's head tipped a degree. Her hand went to the holster and then lifted away, fingers open. Easy, girl. she said to the cat, not me. Voice weather rough. She set her palm low and whistled the same 2 notes. The cat blinked and held. I sank and planted my boots. If she looked and saw me, I'd stand slow, speak first, keep the muzzle down. But I rolled the sight and set my thumb on the safety. Watching had gotten me this far. If discovery came, I'd meet it standing. The cat felt them first ears tipped toward the slot I'd come through, muscles wire tight. The woman's gaze followed. Then hoofbeats, tack, and men talking in that practiced murmur authority wears. Sheriff Morton Blackwood wedged through the pinch with 2 deputies. Their carbines rode high, muzzles jittering. Luna Hayes, Blackwood called, voice bouncing off stone. Step away from the cat. Hands high. Luna didn't flinch. 1 palm stayed out like a bridge between the animal and the men. You walk loud into a cat's den, Sheriff, she said. You aiming to scare her or make a mistake you can't unsign? A mistake's letting that beast live, a deputy snapped. Blackwood scanned the tidy camp, the snares, chalk marks, re-sewn collar, survey corner peeking from a bedroll. You're a public menace, he declared. Morrison's stock keeps turning up lead. We'll seize the animal, sort the rest later. Morrison's words come faster than his truth, Luna said, even. He pays boys to hold paper like guns. That brushed something raw in me. I'd wanted a culprit. What I found was a person guarding her family. The cat pressed to her leg, and the air shrank. Blackwood nudged his horse. Hands up. The cat's tail flicked the 1-second fuse before badness. I saw 2 futures, panic and bullet holes or somebody steadying the table. I rose from behind my rock into the open with the Winchester low, but alive in my hands. Sheriff, I said, calm as I could make it. Let's not twitch. The deputies swung their carbines toward me. I didn't point at men. I pointed at consequences. Lower aim, I said. You spook that cat should do what cats do, then we'll spend the day naming mistakes. Blackwood recognized me. Cross, you're the one losing stock. I am, I said, and I've been counting. Funny how the law turns up only when a rope can go on a throat. We're taking the animal, he said. Not today, I said. Not here. I slid the muzzle an inch, enough iron to give my words bones. We can talk, we aren't shooting. Luna didn't look back, but she clicked twice. The cat sat like a trained thought. You obstructing arrest, Elijah? Blackwood asked. I'm obstructing a bad shot, I said. Tell me, Sheriff, how many of Morrison's calves died before mine? Or did he just lose patience with my pasture? Silence. A raven barked above us. The deputies' barrels dipped a breath, relief in being told what not to do. That cat ever take a person? I asked. No, Luna said. Because I don't ask her to. Then who's been asking? I kept my eyes on Blackwood. Luna answered anyway. Jacob Morrison likes clean hands. He hires noise and baits cattle off fence lines. He buys the word justice when it suits. Blackwood didn't deny it. He adjusted his hat and let anger speak. We'll see what a judge says. Maybe, I said. But the first judge is the ground under our boots. Holster. Water whispered through the bowl. After a beat, Blackwood flicked 2 fingers. The deputies lowered their guns without love. The sheriff's eyes told me I'd purchased trouble cash. I could afford it, easy. I said to men, to cat, to whatever comes next. The canyon held its breath. The canyon answered my easy with a breath of wind that smelled like iron, and then weather rode in on horses. 5 men shouldered through the pinch the sheriff had used, their mounts lathered and eyes edged white. Jacob Morrison led, coat. The color of bankwood, hat perfect, jaw shaved to a shine. He looked like a ledger had learned to sit a saddle. His riders fanned like a hand of knives. 2 slid left to the boulder seam. 1 took the rim path, and the last eased between black woods. Deputies as if he owned their shadows. Exit sealed without a word. Afternoon, Morrison said, voice clean and public. Sheriff, cross. His gaze clipped past me to Luna and the cat. And Miss Hayes. Luna's chin ticked, but she didn't give him more than the breath he demanded. The cat flowed a half step to keep her leg in its whiskers. Thunder grumbled beyond the rim. A wagon a mile away you couldn't see. Morrison pulled a folded paper, and let its seal flash like a fish. "Temporary injunction," he announced. "Territorial court recognizes a threat to commerce and stock. Sheriff, you're ordered to seize the animal. Miss Hayes, you'll submit to custody for questions. Mr. Cross," he smiled like a fence line, "we ought to discuss transfer of that low pasture of yours. It puts strain on our common interests, with you holding water like a private crown." I stepped closer to see the paper. The seal was real. The ink was not. The judge's name had an E where there shouldn't be one. The date, 2 days. I had, like time, bowed to Jacob Morrison. "Forgeries are most convincing when they only lie a little. You brought weather to sell me my own ground?" I asked. "I brought weather to wash this place clean," he said. "Progress needs room. Rail wants a spur. Fencing reduces predation, quarantines disease." He nodded toward the cat. "Justice requires we kill that." Blackwood's mouth worked, torn between his badge and the hand that paid his whiskey tabs. He looked small on his horse. Luna's hand shook once and then stilled. "You don't get to say we about killing her," she said. "You get to say you, and you get to live with it." Morrison's smile shrank to its bones. "Terms," he said, crisp as chalk. "Surrender the woman. Destroy the animal. Cross signs a bill of sale on the low pasture and access to the North Spring. In return, I see Sheriff Blackwood lauded for decisive action, and I see to it that Mr. Cross's remaining herd is compensated at market. Defy me, and this becomes a killing ground. My men have the angles. The law rides with me on paper and on." Hoof! The rider on the rim clicked his tongue. I glanced. His rifle already nested into a notch between stones, muzzle drawing a line to my ribs. The two by the seam shifted to cut Luna off if she ran that way. Minnows of panic scattered in. My gut and left the cold water behind. My mouth went dry enough to rasp. I thought of calves with their throats opened neat as a clerk's pen, of chalk dust on stone, of a rope groove healed pink under black fur. I thought of Morrison's talk of progress. It always meant somebody else paid. "No," I said. The word sounded small in all that rock, but it fit me. I stepped so the Winchester's weight showed, not waving the barrel, just letting it declare. "You kill that cat, it'll be because you opened fire on a woman standing still. You take my pasture, it'll be because you stole it while witnesses watched. You want to write history that filthy, put your name on the first shot." Morrison's eyes cooled. "Men," he said, and the rim rifle settled a hair deeper. "Last chance to be reasonable." "I am," I said. "Reasonable is refusing a lie." Luna's boot slid until it touched mine. Not much, just enough that I knew where she stood without looking. The cat's tail drew a slow S across the dust. Stormlight pushed a bruised color into the bowl. Blackwood's jaw caved in on itself. "Jacob," he said, soft, warning and plea together. Morrison didn't hear him. 3, he counted, pleasant as prayer. 2. I curled the sight to the rim man's shoulder and let my breath fall. If a spark was coming, I meant to meet it ready. Thunder answered from the rim. 1. "Kill it." The rim rifle cracked. Stone snapped by my cheek. I rolled behind the boulder as the bowl blew open shouts, iron horses bawling. Luna didn't shout. She clicked twice. The cat went weightless one arc to the rim path, claws, where boots would slip. The rifleman swung to track, too slow. She didn't take him. She took his horse 2 rakes at the hind leg and a bite to the stirrup leather. The mount screamed, folded. The rifleman tumbled, gun pinwheeling into brush. "On the cat," Morrison barked. 2 riders surged off the scene, pistols cracking. I saw where their angles would cross and slid the Winchester over rock. I squeezed and took the nearer man through the forearm. His pistol leaped like it hated him. He folded, foot snarled until the horse dragged him and quit, trembling. The second fired blind. Luna's hand cut a shape. The cat flattened, sprang under. A belly, nipped a hock not to keep, just to break the mind. The mount folded like a dropped chair. The rider spilled and gulped dust. "Hold your fire." Blackwood tried, late, drowned by Morrison's "kill the damn thing." I crabbed left to keep rim rock between me and deputies' muzzles. Luna kept counting. 2 clicks for hold, a whistle for flank, a low hum for come. The cat answered like a thought, never for flesh. She tore certainty, instead stirrup leathers, reins, hocks. Men lost their geometry. Horses turned. Aim unraveled. Deputy Sim Deeks threw a shot and near clipped Blackwood's knee. The sheriff swore, batted his barrel down, then shouldered for the pinch. I'll fetch the judge, he lied to the dust. His absence pulled wind off the fire. Morrison stayed mounted, hat too fine for weather. The cat rose over the fallen rim horse and fixed him. Not meet warning. I can reach you, and your paper won't stop me. Shoot her, Morrison shouted, voice edged now. He tried to back without looking like he was backing. Horses smell the truth. His mount danced, then jolted when the cat made no move at all. Another rider pressed me off the rock. I stepped in, brought the Winchester up like a hammer, and hit his gun hand. Bone gave. He went white. I kicked his pistol away. Stay. He stayed. Left, Luna said. I swung and found the deputy who'd threaded in among Morrison's men. He had me clean. I fired first. His hat flew. He flopped and lay still, breathing fast. Dust boiled. The cat skimmed the water ribbon and landed 10 feet from Morrison's horse. She didn't lunge. She just existed there too near to shoot without hitting your own knee. Morrison froze with the animal in his eyes, rifle forgotten. Enough, I said. Stand down. Hands lifted. Guns eased to dirt. Beyond the rim, a new hoofbeat threaded the thunder order of a different kind. Luna's fingers brushed my coat. Cuff once, quick. The cat eased a breath and stepped back without giving Morrison her spine. Strategy, not slaughter. We were alive to choose what came next. The new hoofbeats didn't hurry. They came like a clock through the dust. A man in a duster rode first, star above his pocket. 2 rangers flanked him. A few neighbors followed, faces set. Marshal, Blackwood said, coming through the pinch. With his hat in his hands, one sweep took the scene-fallen horses, scuffed stone, guns in the dirt, Morrison sitting high, Luna with the cat at heel, me braced. The marshal unfolded paper. Jacob Morrison, he said, voice steady, you are under arrest for conspiracy to defraud the land office, mail fraud, intimidation, and murder of Samuel Hayes. Luna didn't move, but the name took her color and returned it as heat. My father, she said. Morrison laughed a public kind. Rubbish. Cooked by jealous men and a girl who whispers to animals. Sheriff, remove this farce. Blackwood's jaw worked, then set. He holstered his sidearm, slowly as if it weighed new. Jacob, he said, eyes on the warrant, you sent that night letter with my name after I refused. You said if I balked you'd cost my boy his grazing and my wife her doctor. He looked to the marshal. I let myself be leaned on. I'm done being leaned. The marshal nodded. You'll answer for your piece, Sheriff, but not today. To Morrison, dismount. Morrison tried a different smile and found it didn't fit. Men, he called, but most guns pointed at dirt. A ranger took his bridle like a friend taking a bottle from a hand that shouldn't drink. I told the marshal, the calves, the staged tracks, chalk on bedrock ghost to scare us off water. We've been reading, he said. Receipts. Kept. Riders trailed driving sick cattle through clean range so deaths could be blamed on fences. Samuel Hayes wrote a complaint he never mailed. He turned up under 30 feet of arroyo. The finder bragged at the wrong card table. Luna steadied. 2 boys who baited cattle work his east camp. Promise them a life not under him, and they'll talk. We'll hear it, the marshal said, raising a second packet. Warrants for records at his ranch and the office above the feed store. Sheriff assist. Blackwood took the papers like they might burn or save him. I'll assist. He looked at Luna. I was wrong to call you a menace. I let another man's money translate my mouth. Say it plain, she said. I was wrong. Morrison jerked at the bridle and earned a rope on his wrist. You think this changes the valley? He spat. Rail still comes. Paper grows. Back. Maybe, I said, but some of us learned to read it. The marshal tipped his chin at the cat. And her? Under my care, Luna said. Away from stock. She isn't a weapon. She's the promise I kept when people didn't. So, long as she stays a promise, I've no interest in new enemies, he said. We take testimony. We ride before night. The arrest moved like weather rope to wrist, papers to pocket. Morrison's mouth kept working, but the canyon stopped listening. The tight band around my ribs loosened. Law, when it has a spine, Sounds like that, not loud, not cruel, but final. We'd have to tend it like fence and pump. For a minute, Dead Horse Canyon felt named wrong. There were living tracks underfoot again. By evening, the canyon let go of its breath. The storm erased its threat and left a bruise of cloud along the rim. Men gathered their guns out of the dust like they were picking up bad habits they weren't sure they wanted anymore. The Marshal sorted riders and papers. Blackwood moved careful, like the ground might fine him for a wrong step. Neighbors who'd come with the law looked my way, and then at Luna with something I hadn't seen in weeks, thoughtfulness instead of fear. The question nobody wanted to own finally walked out and stood between us. The cat. A rancher named Kellersober, as Winter said what needed saying, "If that animal's near our herds, we'll never sleep." He didn't spit it. He set it down like a ledger entry. Luna steadied a breath. "She doesn't live in town," she said. "She doesn't hunt cattle. She hunts what I point at and what the land gives: fair hog, deer, rabbit. She won't cross your fences because I won't. If a steer dies and you're set on blaming her, you come to me first. We walk the ground together and read what's written." Keller looked at the cat, at her new, quiet shape, now that thunder had climbed down. "And if a boy spooks her at the creek, then I bring her away before the boy does something he has to live with," Luna said. "I kept her alive by teaching her the edge between wild and ours. I keep myself alive the same way." The Marshal nodded. "You keep clear of stock and men, Miss Hayes. I put that on paper. Any complaint you meet at daylight and sober. Sheriff, you log it. We'll make this a matter of record instead of rumor." Blackwood swallowed and said yes like a man learning to read his own name. I didn't know what to do with my hands. They'd been busy for weeks burying calves, counting shells, gripping reins. Now they wanted a future to hold. I stepped, too. Luna, the cat, watched me without making me small. "I've got border ground that turns into canyon," I said. "Poachers melt in there when trouble comes, and they'll keep trying, with or without Morrison. What if we do this straight, contracted, you and her?" I nodded. "Run the rim at night. I pay you the way I'd pay a man with dogs. You set signals on rocks so my riders know where to look. We build a pen out past the blue sage for your camp. No more chalk on bedrock. No more tidy lies. If a steer dies, we walk it together like you said, and we agree in ink, not anger." She studied my face for the word I wasn't saying. "And what do you want besides quiet fences, Elijah?" "Company that won't steal," I said, and felt heat rise. "Work that fits the land. A start that doesn't begin with blood." She glanced at the cat, then at Clara, tied in the shade like a question mark. "We can try," she said. "Try is honest." Neighbors drifted close enough to hear the shape of it. Keller nodded once. "If it's on paper," he said. "I can sleep with paper. It will be," the Marshal said. He tucked Morrison's warrants away like finished chores. "I'll have my clerk draft something plain." We packed the canyon's day into bundles, guns to scabbards, rope to saddles, bruised men to their feet. Morrison rode out under rope and silence. Blackwood lifted his chin and took the long way beside the Marshal, like he meant to practice being. Straight, the Rangers whistled low at the cat and then remembered manners and looked away. Clara breathed warm into my palm when I untied her. "We're all right," I told her, and for once it wasn't a lie said to steady a horse. It was a thing that could be true if we kept choosing it. Luna slung her bedroll in a shape that said she'd done this 1,000 times. The cat rose, not like a shadow, but like a fact. We walked together to the mouth of Dead Horse, the canyon, giving back wider sky with every step. At the last pinch, the cat paused and set one paw deliberate in damp sand. The print came out clean, as any I'd seen, but it felt different. Not a dare. A mark that said, "We were here and we went this way," dot at the rim. The sun poured itself along the land, until every fence post threw a long, forgiving finger across the grass. We stopped where my pasture begins, and her hills keep their secrets. Men traded nods and peeled off toward their homes. The Marshal set his hat and took the road like a man who'd be believed next time he came. Keller tipped 2 fingers to Luna. She returned it like a neighbor. I offered my hand. Luna looked at it, then at me. "Coffee first," she said, "then pens and paper." Mine's bad, I admitted. I've drunk worse for worse reasons. We shook on it, work and mercy, both. That night, with stars laid out like nails in a new roof, I stood on my porch and listened. No growl hunted the walls. No horse blew in panic. Somewhere out beyond the blue sage, a woman and her cat settled into a camp nobody owned but them. I poured coffee that tasted like creek mud and grinned anyway. The tracks that began as warnings had become a map you could follow home. You don't get that many times in a life. When it comes, you leave it. Clean for whoever's behind you.